দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি চ্যানেল 24 এর বিশেষ আয়োজন মুখোমুখিতে। মুখোমুখিতে আজকে আমাদের অতিথি বাংলাদেশের জাতিসংঘের আবাসিক প্রতিনিধি মিয়া সেপ্রো। ওয়েলকাম টু দ্য শো।
থ্যাংক ইউ ফর হ্যাভিং মি।
আর আজকের মুখোমুখিতে আমরা কথা বলবো রোহিঙ্গা সংকটের ভবিষ্যৎ এবং জাতিসংঘ কিভাবে আমাদেরকে সহযোগিতা করছে, তাদের জয়েন্ট রেসপন্স প্ল্যান খুব সম্প্রতি যেটি প্রকাশিত হয়েছে এই বিষয়ে। জয়েন্ট রেসপন্স প্ল্যান বিন রিলিজড। What are the major challenges you sorted out in this plan?
So the joint response plan is basically the UN and the humanitarian community's support to the government-led response to the Rohingya crisis from March to December 2018. It's a comprehensive plan that looks at the priority needs to support the Rohingya refugees. It is a plan that also looks at the needs of the host communities. So it's a comprehensive plan. It's a plan that benefited a lot from a broad range of engagement with government, with civil society, and obviously with the whole humanitarian community. So it is a plan that paints a comprehensive picture of the priority needs and the way forward. And it's the plan that's going to direct our work for the rest of 2018.
What are the major challenges in coming days? Because is it going to be the monsoon or monsoon time diseases? Is it something else, or the landslide, or the conflict between the Rohingyas and Rohingya with the local communities?
The top line concern at the moment is the upcoming rain and cyclone and monsoon season. There is a lot of work going on to prepare for the upcoming bad weather. So the UN is working very closely with the RRRC's office, with the DC's office, with MODMR to stabilize the slopes, to make sure that there's access throughout the camp when the bad weather starts, to have a conversation and get a plan in place led by the government in terms of how would you deal with evacuation in a worst-case scenario. There's also work going on with the communities in terms of volunteers, in terms of first responders, and in terms of early warning messages. So this is all work which is ongoing. What is important to recognize is that this is a very congested camp. You know, as one of the fastest growing refugee crises in the world, what it led to is that you have a mega camp which is incredibly congested. And now on top of that you get the flood risk and the landslide risk. So we need to relocate a big number of people away from the high risk areas.
Any challenge regarding handling all these people not to be getting conflict situation with among themselves or within the local community?
So this is a risk, you know, which will grow over time depending on how all the other risks are managed. You know, you have already a very, very detrimental impact on the environment from this huge influx of people. So when you look at forest, you look at land, you look at water, you have an ecosystem which was vulnerable to begin with, and you have an additional 1 million people. So obviously you have a huge impact on the environment. And this needs to be addressed very quickly in order for also that pressure not to have impact on the livelihoods of the host community. The government has called on the UN, on development partners, the humanitarian community to be very mindful of the needs of the host community. We are working with the DC's office to do there's been a lot of rapid assessments, but to really understand the impact and to understand what are the interventions that can be done to alleviate the impact on the host community, and therefore to make sure that the tensions don't go up. I think the world owes Bangladesh and the people of Bangladesh a huge gratitude for what has been done here. It's unique. Few countries would, how we human beings are. We need to have a purpose, we need to have something to do, we need to have a sense of hope for the future. And that's what we have to create, even in these extraordinary conditions, even, you know, recognizing that, you know, this is a temporary setup, this is a temporary context. That doesn't mean that we can avoid creating conditions that keep, you know, that give people a hope, sense of hope for the future.
On this point, we have to take our first break and we'll come back. দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম বাংলাদেশের জাতিসংঘের আবাসিক প্রতিনিধি মিয়া সেপুর সাথে। কথা বলছিলাম যে কিভাবে জাতিসংঘ আগামী দিনে রোহিঙ্গা সংকট সমাধানে যে জয়েন্ট রেসপন্স প্ল্যান ঘোষণা করেছে সেই অনুযায়ী কাজ করবে, সে বিষয়ে আলোচনার এই পর্যায়ে একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি। সাথেই থাকুন, ফিরছি একটু পর। আমন্ত্রণ আরো একবার মুখোমুখিতে কথা বলছিলাম জাতিসংঘের বাংলাদেশ আবাসিক প্রতিনিধি মিয়া সেপুর সাথে রোহিঙ্গা সংকট সমাধান নিয়ে। I want to look at the future. How this crisis is going to be solved? What do you think?
Well, I obviously have a very short perspective on this crisis, and you have a lot of people, in particular in Bangladesh, who have a perspective on this crisis that goes back to 78, 91, 92.
Right.
So, I mean, that's important to remember. This is a protracted situation from many years. What is new now is the scale and the magnitude of the crisis, and that obviously is what has brought such concern from the United Nations, from UN member states in terms of what is going on. We have the UN is not part of the bilateral conversations between Bangladesh and Myanmar. We certainly welcome the fact that the government of Bangladesh has called for a strong role for the United Nations, UNHCR in particular, on any issues related to return. We also welcome the fact that the government has been very clear and strong in its commitment that any return has to be voluntary, has to be in dignity and safety in order to be sustainable. The world really has paid a lot of attention to this crisis, as you would expect. So you have had the Security Council considering the Rohingya crisis many times.
But they are like, whenever we see that these dialogues in the Security Council, they're like divided. Still, Russia and China, they are in favor of Myanmar, and the rest of the people are in favor of Bangladesh or in favor of humanity. That does show, or some people, critics say, Security Council failed to address this issue properly and put some sanctions on Myanmar. Do you believe, according with those critics, or you have some separate explanations?
It's too soon to judge. I mean, what you obviously have seen is that you know, unity or lack thereof in the Security Council can really hold back finding solutions to complex crises. I think it's important to note that, you know, the world is watching, as you said earlier. This is one of the 12 priorities of the UN Secretary General for 2018. So I think while you haven't seen kind of determined action from the side of the Security Council yet, you have obviously seen a number of member states speaking up strongly. You have a strong engagement from the various human rights mechanisms, and you have the government of Bangladesh using various multilateral fora very effectively to keep the spotlight on this crisis. But moving forward, you know, we need to start to look at other ways of ensuring the sustainability, because that level of funding is unlikely for the duration, for a longer term. And while the return agenda is critical, it's important to look at various ways of expanding the range of interventions and programs that is taking place here. I think, you know, if there's one thing that Bangladesh can give to the Rohingya is to have them leave with skills they didn't have when they came here. Okay. That's a way of making their return more sustainable, and that's a way of upgrading and upskilling, you know, their existence. So these are the, you know, the conversations which are happening.
On this point, we have to take another break, but I'll try to be hopeful like you, or more optimistic, I would say. দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম জাতিসংঘের আবাসিক প্রতিনিধি মিয়া সেপুর সাথে। সিকিউরিটি কাউন্সিলে যতবার রোহিঙ্গা সংকট নিয়ে আলোচনা হয়েছে, আমরা দ্বিধাবিভক্ত যে মতামত দেখেছি, বিশেষ করে রাশিয়া চীনের যে অবস্থান, সে বিষয়ে কথা বলছিলাম। আলোচনা চলতে থাকবে, সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছে একটা বিরতির পর। আমন্ত্রণ আর একবার আজকের মুখোমুখিতে কথা বলছিলাম জাতিসংঘের আবশ্যিক প্রতিনিধি মিয়া সেপ্পুর সাথে। Let's look at the future. Joint response plan been disclosed and UN will need $951 million. Huge amount of money. Any idea how you will generate this amount of money?
I think it's important to recognize that it is a huge amount of money. But there's a reason why the needs are so big. And the reason is obviously that you have an extremely vulnerable group of people, and the fact that the needs of the Rohingya are very great because they came with nothing.
Yeah.
So, and the speed and at which the camp came about means there's still a lot of work to be done to improve the living conditions in the camp and to ensure that you have the safeguards and the protection that you need. The amount is big, but it's based on needs assessments. It's based on, knowledge of what is needed. And it's actually, from our side, there's even been an effort to try to keep the number down, recognizing how competitive the funding environment is. We've had, now following the launch, we are speaking to all the donor partners in terms of reaching out to mobilize those resources. The launch event in Geneva on the 16th of March was extremely well attended, which really shows that there still is a very keen interest in this crisis, and the number of member states spoke about their commitment to continue to stay engaged and to continue to support, and that's of course what we're very grateful for.
A very tricky one probably for you, but do you think there's a still debate between UNHCR and IOM in Cox's Bazar who will be named the leading role, or it's done? It's about the migration.
BISS, okay. Look, there's a range of UN agencies involved. They have their mandates, they have their specialized expertise. UNHCR, both on the Bangladesh and the Myanmar side, is firmly in the lead when it comes to issues of return. When it comes to coordination of this response, this is a very complex response, and the needs go beyond what anyone alone can do. So on the UN side, we have a mechanism that includes myself as the UN resident coordinator, IOM and UNHCR, jointly working with all the other UN agencies to meet the needs of the Rohingya refugees. And importantly, working with the INGOs, which are critical, as well as working with local NGOs, local and national NGOs. So you have the sectors, health, water and sanitation, food security, protection, nutrition, site management, shelter. All of these have their agency lead, and then it's brought together under a coordinated approach under the Joint Response Plan. On the UN side, the UN Secretary General has very clearly said this is a refugee crisis, and from the UN side, that's the terminology we use. So if you have read the Joint Response Plan, it refers to the government's terminology. It also refers to Rohingya refugees.
And you're okay with government terminology?
The government sets its policies. It's not for me to criticize those policies and the nomenclature that the government has put in place. The government has obviously its reasons for its policies. What is critical is that we can do what we need to do, which is the government has provided the space, the government has provided the access, the government has provided, all the support to be able to scale a response this big and this complex, and that's the most important thing.
It's been absolute pleasure learning from you, from your experience. I believe with UN, Bangladesh will be able to handle all these people more carefully than the past times, because the coming monsoon, we don't want any bad situation. We want to have a good situation, and with help of UN, coordination of UN, Bangladesh can do it.
It is a joint effort. This is not something the UN alone can do. This is the UN together with humanitarian partners in support of government efforts. This is going to take a joint effort. This is already a joint effort. That's the only way we're going to be able to save lives and take action if we have a big natural disasters on top of what is a man-made disaster, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you for coming to the show. It's been absolutely pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম জাতিসংঘের আবাসিক প্রতিনিধি মিয়া সেপ্পোর সাথে। শরণার্থী বলেন কিংবা জোরপূর্বক বাস্তুহারা মিয়ানমারের নাগরিক যেই হোক না কেন, রোহিঙ্গাদের পাশে জাতিসংঘ যেমন আছে, বাংলাদেশও তেমন থাকবে। তাদেরকে একটি টেকসই আবাসস্থল দেওয়ার জন্য বাংলাদেশ এবং জাতিসংঘ একসঙ্গে কাজ করবে। ধন্যবাদ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য।